All right, everybody, thank you for being here. What we're going to go through today is Canva, not to be confused with Canvas, totally different thing, which is kind of a template starter for all sorts of design options you want to create, whether it be posters or presentations or social media posts, all sorts of cool things you can do with it. You can either start with a template, which I'll show you today, or you can start from scratch. And I'm going to show you the different elements that can go inside of it, some things, how to manipulate some of those components, how to share it out with others, save it to your hard drive, all those kinds of things. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. And feel free to interrupt at any time that you guys have questions. All right, hopefully you guys are seeing the Canvas screen in front of you. The first thing I want to share here, we were talking about this kind of before we formally started our session here, is that there is an educator option for this that will allow us to get this for free. So let me see if I can get to the chat here and send this to everybody, just so you can have how to register your education account with Canva so that you can get the pro version for free. And I'll talk a little bit more about the difference between the pro and the free, but essentially it's a lot of the templates, graphics, things like that. There are 2 tiers. Everybody can access the free ones, and then the pro is for the people that have paid, unless you're an educator, and then they're all free. Now, to the best of my knowledge, because it's a student account, I think students can get the free version as well. They would use their NKU account in this case, or wherever you are, and I think they can get that as well. So when we're thinking about this, I would definitely encourage you to think about this, not just in terms of how we might use this as educators ourselves, but how we can maybe use this as a part of projects or pieces that students can create and turn back into us. I think there's a lot we could do here with creativity and having them create either on their own or in groups, different, I'm going to use the term presentation loosely because there's so much more you can do with this than just presentations. Think about adding audio or video to these, pictures of them, maybe even in placement or demonstrating something. There's a lot that they can do inside of this. So that educator account will get you started on that. And that's what I'm using right now. I am using a pro account. And when I start going through some of these pieces, you'll be able to tell, it'll say pro and it'll say as a pro user, you can use this. So here we are on, once you get signed up and your account is verified, you'll come to a home page like this. And on our homepage, you can see several things over here on the left. We're going to focus really on just our design area and our projects. Know that you can share things with each other. So if you're working in a group, you can share designs with each other, give them edit capability, much like a Google project, something like that, that you're going to give editing rights to. You can also collaboratively work together. So from here on this main page, you can see some of the main kind of categories of templates up here at the top. If you guys happen to have dual monitors, feel free to bring this up and look at it while I'm talking too, so you can maybe play a little bit while I'm describing. You can see that we've got presentations, social media posts, videos, print products, and each of these templates are going to be different depending on the size that it's designed for. So that's one of the differences depending on the template that you choose. So obviously a social media post is going to have different dimensions than a presentation that looks more like a PowerPoint. And you'll be able to see those once you get inside. So here are some main categories we could take a look at, but maybe the most helpful thing is to just start searching for what we think we want to do. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go up to the box and I am going to search on, let's say I'm looking for an education presentation. Now, notice that when I search, I've got 2 different areas I could be searching in. The templates area, which is what I'm going to do, or your own project. So if you have a lot of those and you want to search through for one that you named a certain thing or was under a certain category, you can search just in your projects as well. So I'm going to look at all the templates I have and choose education presentation here. Now, when I do that, a whole bunch of presentations are going to pop up. And you can see on the left, we can filter down if we want to. So if we are looking for something that's a little more modern looking, or something that's specifically for teachers or for elementary, you can filter through that. When you've got sort of the area in front of you that you think is filtered to what you're looking for, a couple of cool things you can do with this. Obviously, you can see a lot of these templates. If you leave your mouse on one of them, it'll actually flip through the slides for you, sort of a dynamic preview, so that you can see what those slides will look like. You can also see in the lower left-hand corner how many slides this includes. Now, certainly you can delete out slides, you can add in more slides, but these are kind of unique individual pages, how many exist. You can also see in this lower right corner that this one is a pro template, and it says, because I'm a pro subscriber, because I'm an educator, this one is for free. This is one of those differences you'll see between the free account and that pro account that you can all use. So again, I can move my mouse over to another one and start to see what that template looks like. I can start, if I want to come back to it later, kind of as a favorite. And I've got a couple options up here under the dots where I can customize this or preview it. So I'm actually going to choose this one that says classroom rules, just to give us something to play around with. Again, if you guys are playing there, feel free to open it up or open up something else if you want. This is the one I'm going to play around with. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And it's going to open up for me in a space that will show me on the left. I have got a lot of different options. We'll go through these in just a minute. And on the right is the presentation itself, where we can start making edits and changes and things like that. So one of the first things that we might notice is that obviously there is text on each of these slides. So I'm going to start with text here. To modify any text, it's just like you would think. You can click right inside of there, double click, and you can type anything that you want. So maybe I want to put my class number before it. You can also, just like in so many other tools, you can change the font style, you can change the size, you can change the color, you can add bold, italicized, underline, nothing earth-shattering here. This should all look pretty familiar to what you've used in other programs. Also know that you can size these with the corners by dragging. And if you grab where you can see, we've got the double, if I can get it back again. There, right there, you can drag the whole thing. Sort of that double cross that allows you to move everything. Text is very easy to modify. If we wanted to, let's say, group a couple of things together, let me show you how to do that. And that's often done with text. I'm going to scroll down on the right here to get to my next slide. You can see here I'm on page 2. I'm going to actually slide on down a little bit to page 5 just to show you. Now, what I mean by grouping is inside of this box, do you see how I've got some text up here at the top, the how to describe stories and events, and I also have a text box here that says send surveys and questions. Now, maybe you want them as individual boxes, but maybe you want to group them together so that when you move things, both those boxes are going to move together, or when you size things. This is entirely up to you in design. But let me just show you, if you are going to group or ungroup things, you would click one box, hold the shift button, click the second box, and then up here is going to pop up a group option in the upper right-hand corner. You can group. Once they're grouped, you can ungroup. So I mentioned that also because you will notice in some of these templates that things are already grouped. So you might want to break that. And so I want you to know how to break it or bring it back together again. So grouping and ungrouping is pretty handy. Let's say that you want to add more text. Okay, this is nice, but I really actually want to add another text box. I want to add some more content to this. On the left, one of the options that you're going to see is text. So if I click on text, it's going to kind of walk us through. I've got lots of different ways I can add in text. At the top are a little more traditional ways, a heading, a subheading, a little bit of body text, and that will kind of determine the size of it. So let's say I add in a subheading, You can see the box popped up over here. I can grab it and move it, and I can type inside of it. Pretty simple. It's a basic text box. If at any point you decide you added something and you wanted to change that, here's your handy undo button here that's in every program. Let's say you wanted to get crazy and you wanted to add some text that sort of had a little more pizzazz to it or a little more unique look. That's where you might see some of these down here. If I scroll down a little bit, you're going to see some really kind of neat text options that once we add to this, you can modify what the text says. So let's say you kind of like this one. If I click on this, it will bring it over. I can move it wherever I want to move it. And then you can click inside of it and make the text anything you want. And it will keep that same style that you chose. This will allow you to make a good title page or something that has a little bit more effects to it. So again, you can resize this. You can move it, whatever you want to do with it. Now, let's say that you have some text that the text is fine, but you want to add a little bit more to it, maybe not quite this much. There is an option up here at the top that says effects. And once you click on that, you can see that there are some shapes and styles that you can add to any of your text. Word had something like this that was, if you remember, it was often at the beginning it was called word art, that would kind of curve things and it would make it look like shadows and things like that. That's what these are for. So you can change your text, make it look like different shapes and sizes and things like that with these effects that we found here at the top. I didn't mention you can also rotate at that bottom little double arrow at the bottom. Again, that's a similar button that you'll see in lots of different tools. So a lot of things you can do with text. Some may come in your template that you're choosing, but you might want to kind of make some changes on your own. And there's a lot you can do with that, whether you're using the text option over here or you're using the effects at the top. Everybody good? All right. Okay, so I'm going to move down to the next slide just to give myself another sort of area to work on. Something that you will very often add to your either presentation or social media post or poster or whatever are images. So there's a couple different ways that you can add in photos. Over here on the left, you're going to see one of those options above text is photos. So if you click on this, they've got a great gallery that you can choose from that if you want to add in something to your presentation or post or whatever. So very simply, you would come up to the top, and I'm going to actually use one that I used before. I'm going to choose the word classroom. Now, a whole bunch of images are going to pop up. You will see on some of these, if I get down low enough, usually they show you the free ones first. You might see one that says Pro. This is another area where if you aren't on a Pro account, you can only use certain images in your presentation. If you are on that Education Pro account, the sky's the limit for you. You can add in anything you want. So let's say I pick one of my images here and I can add it to my slide. Two things you need to know about images. If you grab at the corners, this will resize. Nothing earth shattering there. You guys have probably seen that before. If you grab at the sides or top or bottom, you're cropping. So left to right is going to crop. Up and down is going to crop. The corners will resize. So just make sure that you're resizing if you mean to, or you're cropping if you mean to. So let's say I kind of like this one, but my font is now white and I can't see it as well. You can always go back in and change any of that. Here's your color up here at the top. I'll change that to black. See if I like that. I don't know. I might change that still again or move it down or something. Very easy to add in images. Now, let's say you have an image that you want to add in. I'm going to move down to the next slide here. Let's say you have an image on your own that you want to bring in. So that's where you use this uploads button over here on the left. Upload your media, anything that you want to add in here, and it'll show up in your images, your library. Now on some slides, and we could have brought it in and added it anywhere we wanted, just like we did the slide prior. But sometimes the templates will have a little placeholder for an image. If you happen to see one of those, you can add in any of your images or any of the stock images and drag and drop it into that space, and it'll kind of resize it to that space. If you don't like that space, you can delete it out and add it anywhere you want on the page. But if you see those placeholders, you can actually just drop it right inside of there. Okay, so photos, pretty easy. We're gonna go and look at elements, one up from uploads. Elements is kind of your catch-all for all sorts of things. We've got lines and shapes here. We've got some graphics. We've got some photos, videos, and even audio. In this area, because there's so much, one of the things I have found to be most helpful is to use this search up here at the top. And it'll actually show you in all of those categories if something matches. So for example, if I go and type in teach, it shows me everything that fit that criteria. I can look at just photos, and these are more like stock photos. I kind of like that one. Graphics are more like kind of cartoony. They look a little more like clip art. Videos, they're added in here as well, and audio that you can add to your slides. So if, let's say, I wanted to add in an audio, this is a song. If I drag and drop it, then the music's going to play. I'll go ahead and stop that. But as a side note, you can also add in your own audio, but that's a little bit more than what we're going to do today. So the elements area there's a lot in there that will allow you to add additional pieces, components to your slide or social media post or poster or whatever. Another thing that's maybe helpful to take a look at is layering of objects. So again, nothing that you haven't seen before, but there are, let me take that back out. There are ways to bring things to the back and move things to the front. So if you have things layered together and you want to make sure that the text is on top of everything, and for some reason it's behind, that happens to me every once in a while. I'll add it. I'm like, well, where'd it go? It's underneath everything. I just want to show you that if you click on your item, there is a position button in the upper right-hand corner where you can click, and this is your send to the back or bring forward. So if I say backwards, now it's hidden because now it's behind the box. If I say forward, it's going to bring it back again. So if you have things layered together and you're finding that they're not layering the way you want, make sure that you're looking at that position for forward, back, and moving things around for you. Okay, so let's say that you are working on your presentation and you want to add in a new page. There's a couple different ways to add a new page. At the top of, in this case, a presentation, we have got in the upper right-hand corner, add page. Now that's going to add something, that's going to add a blank sort of page for you to add anything you want. And you might want to do it that way, completely blank. For me, I have found maybe this duplicate page to be a little more helpful. So if one of your slides or poster pages is set up just like you would want, but you want to add in additional content that kind of matches the other pieces or the other slides in front or behind it, you might want to say duplicate page and then just make the modifications you need. That gives you a little more consistency if you want to make sure they look roughly the same all the way through, how the words are laid out, where they are on the screen, that you have an image on each one. That is a handy button there, that duplicate page. If you want to rearrange your pages, a couple different ways to do that. The first are these arrows where you can move a slide up or down in the sequence. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is going to move it up to page 7. If I click it again, now it's page 6. The other way to do this, and I don't know, maybe even a handier way, is all the way at the bottom here. We have got a little up arrow. If I click that and show the pages, everything pops up here at the bottom. It's not on by default, I don't think, but this will show you your slides in its totality, and you can move and drag and drop things in this timeline here, or this line that you have. So that show pages is helpful to have at the bottom if you want to see kind of big picture what everything looks like and jump a little more quickly to another page in your presentation. You can always minimize that again if it's kind of in your way. All right, everybody good so far? Okay. All right. So what I just, what I just showed you is sort of the basics. Now, if once you create your masterpiece, you are now ready to either share it or download it with others, you need to know about the options up here at the top. Oh, here's where you name it. I didn't mention that. Up here at the top, this is just its generic black, pink, computer, classroom rules, education presentation, a little generic. So you might want to click on that and name it something more handy. Call this Zoom example. All right. Your share button is going to be helpful. This will allow you to either email and share it to others. Remember, I told you you could choose to collaborate with others if you want to. You can also just share a link out and copy the link. Be careful because your default here is to edit. Now, if you're just wanting to share this out to view it, just make sure you click and choose to share it for view. So make sure your permissions are correct, whichever one you're choosing to do. Let's say I want to view it. You would just copy the link and you can post this anywhere. You could post it inside of an LMS. You could email it out. You could put it on a web page, anything that you want. That's one way to share out. Another way you might want to store this or share it is to download it. So this is this down arrow, and they're trying to suggest for you how to download it. And this depends on the template you chose and sort of the dimensions and all of that. But you've got some other options here. You could do it as a PDF. I've done it that way before if I'm sharing it out to a conference or something. So you've got some options, and you can save it down to your own hard drive and then email it out. Sometimes for conferences, you have to upload it to their repository so other presenters or other attendants can download it. Sometimes they want a link, kind of depends. So you can do it any way you want. I usually download it just so I have another copy of it, just in case something happens and I don't have internet access that day or whatever it is I need. I usually have it that way as well. You can present directly from here, which will kind of go full screen and present it just like you would a PowerPoint presentation if you chose to do it that way. And then under these three dots here are a few other options that you have if you were going directly to Google Classroom, or you want to share it to Teams. Remind is a text messaging service that you can send out to students, and so on. There's a lot of different options here too that will allow you to really share it out or save it in a way that works for you and your environment. Okay. 24 minutes, that's pretty good. So before I get off of this screen, is there anything I missed or anything that I didn't go over that you're curious about, or is that kind of enough to get you started? I don't want to overwhelm too much. I think if you played around, you could do that pretty easily, but I want to make sure I don't overlook anything. All right, as you guys start playing around with Canva, if you guys have any questions, let me know. But again, I'd encourage you to not just look at this as what we can do to create for presentation to students or conference presentations or anything else, but maybe even how the students can work together or independently to create, show their knowledge in creative ways. You know, there's lots of different ways they can show us they grasp what we were telling them. This is just one way. And I'll also mention that there are also templates on here for creating games and things in the classroom too. So it's not even just your standard pieces. There's a lot to get you started inside of Canva. And I find it pretty easy to use, which is, you know, one of those check the box for students to use them. I don't think the learning curve would be very high for them. All right, you guys have a good rest of your day.